If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and follow my social media in the description. It really helps me out. It has now been over a week that Logic's latest and possibly last studio album, No Pressure, dropped, and I didn't want to drop a review of it right away, as it is such an important album to Logic and his fans, of course. And initially I wanted to wait even longer than this to write down my thoughts, as my opinion on the record changed from day to day after its release. But over the last couple of days, my thoughts have kind of settled down, and I think this is a good time to drop this review. Let's start off with the basics. No Pressure has been a highly anticipated album for Logic fans, as it serves as the sequel to 2014's fan favorite Under Pressure. Under Pressure marked Logic's debut studio album, and is by many considered his best work to date. Since the release of Under Pressure, Logic's fame has only grown and spread to a wider mass, but many thought his last couple of releases were not on par with the likes of an Under Pressure, The Incredible True Story, or his earlier mixtapes. So there was a lot of pressure, no pun intended, on No Pressure to be Logic's comeback in the rap game, and expectations were high. He first announced that the project was happening in fall of last year with the No Pressure freestyle, where he also announced that he was gonna be a father. This was followed up by a single, OCD, featuring Down to Earth, which I really enjoyed, but didn't actually end up being on the final tracklist. Then there were leaks going around earlier this year, and the hype around the project started to build up even more. And then finally, a week before its July 24th release, Logic officially announced that it was releasing. But he also let us know that he was retiring in the same sentence, which left a lot of fans in a weird mixed emotion state, where they were excited for the album but sad to see Logic leave music after a career that spanned across a whole decade. This, of course, only drove expectations for the album up yet more, because it would be his farewell record to the world and to his fans. If this is actually his last album is a question we can't answer right now, but I've already talked about that in a past video. And while Logic said that it was really his last studio album, he also announced so many other things, ranging from streaming to books to movies to comic books to cartoons and video games that he's working on now, so we as fans can actually look forward to a lot more of Logic's creativity in other venues in the future. But now getting into the record. The album is executive produced by No ID, and this marks the reunion of No ID and Logic for the first time since Under Pressure. Logic later on said in an interview that the beats and production was handled mainly by Six and himself, but No ID was always there to give his thoughts and recommendations, which is why he is listed as the executive producer. This album is supposed to be a comeback to the straight-up rap boom-bap style with a modern touch that made Under Pressure so great. And the first track starts out as exactly that. An incredibly clear and crispy instrumental with Logic just dropping bars on top of it. This No Pressure intro was a perfect introduction and tastemaker for the rest of the project. Hit My Line was my favorite track after my first listen, with its catchy melodic hook and then verses that could be straight out of the Under Pressure or Young Sinatra era, which made me hopeful for the rest of the record. We then go into Growing Pains 4, which has of course been a fan favorite in its first 3 installments, and this one shows Logic interpolating Outkast's Elevators, which is a nice touch. And his flows on here are top notch. The beat doesn't switch up too much throughout the track, but the way he rides it and switches his flows is amazing. Celebration is also another good track, although I'm not too crazy about it and thought it was kind of corny on my first listen, with Logic talking about people telling him that he should rap like this person or that person, something he's talked about a lot before. Salas's verse impressed me though. I was never a big fan of his work, but this verse perfectly completed and complemented the song. Next up is Open Mic / Aquarius 3, and this is also one of the better songs, lyrically speaking, on the project. It's following a narrative where Logic is this act in a bar, and the mix on his voice is supposed to mimic that. Although he recycles old verses and flows on here, it seemed more like a nice throwback than him being lazy. This track also features probably my favorite line on the whole album with "Can't wait until my sun shine and together we reign." Damn. Soul Food 2 has had fans going crazy ever since the tracklist was released, and it is an incredible track. On my first listen, I wanted the instrumental to switch up a little more, as it is just a different or alternate version of the original Soul Food beat, but it's been growing more and more on me. I remember Logic and Six talking about how people have never even heard the original sample for Soul Food, as it couldn't get clear in the Under Pressure days, and that it's way better than Soul Food we know, and I'm thinking this might be it. In the end of Soul Food 2, Logic continues the saga of Thomas and Kai, which started with The Incredible True Story and spanned across Everybody and Young Sinatra 4. This part is of course only enjoyable for people who are already familiar with the storyline and concepts Logic introduced on his earlier records, but his storytelling is incredible on this. Rhyming about these people landing on a foreign planet and not making it sound forced, I was very impressed. The next track, Perfect, though, immediately took away any positive feeling I had at that point, and the fact that it is the most streamed song off the record at the point of writing is honestly just sad, but I get why. The 808 heavy beat and trap production paired with Logic's aggressive and confrontational bars and delivery is just what people want to hear nowadays. But this track should not belong on this record in my opinion, and completely destroys any momentum the album had going for itself. The next track, Man I Is, makes up for it again though, at least partly, with a very smooth Tarika Blue Dreamflower sample and the lyrical ability he presents again, which has been missing from at least his last record, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Dad Bod is Logic rapping about his everyday life and how it has changed since he's become a father, and at first the bars on here seemed corny to me and I thought a lot of people were going to complain about it, but the more I listened to it, the more fun and even cute they seemed to me. Now the next track, 5 Hooks, reminds me a lot of the two prior to it, in terms of song structure and even sound. The title of it being a reference to the fact that there are in fact only 5 hooks in total on this whole LP, which Logic did intentionally to put more focus on his pen game, and he succeeded in that, as this track also proves. We're now getting into the last third of the record with Dark Place. This track is something that Logic said he wrote without the intention of anyone ever hearing it, but then decided to put it on his last album just because it is so personal. The title fits the vibe of the track pretty well, as it is by far the moodiest track on the project, and it goes into things that Logic has talked about before like depression and anxiety, but this one feels way more personal as he describes how these mental health issues keep him from wanting to make music and are an obstacle in his career. It just seems so much more authentic than, for example, parts of Everybody, although the track Anxiety is really good, because he didn't write it for anybody else but himself. The next placement on the tracklist here is A to Z, and it's the second of the 2 songs that should have just been left off of the album, the first one being Perfect. It's Logic trying to do this fun rap challenge thing where he mentions every letter in the alphabet at least once, but the way he does it is not clever or anything. He just emphasizes the letter that's up next in the alphabet. And it's all packaged in this way that's supposed to be a nursery rhyme type thing for his son, who is credited as a feature on this track too. And Logic announced afterwards that he created a bank account for his son that the royalties from this song go into, which is kind of cute, but the track is still cringy and doesn't have any replay value for me. Throughout the album, Thalia, the computer program that has been our companion since Under Pressure, has been giving us information on the album's creation, just like in the old days. But after A to Z, she kinda slips up from this completed the No Pressure program into Welcome to the Ultra 85 program, which has fueled my belief in the theory that Ultra 85 will be the deluxe edition of No Pressure, but as I said, I talked about that in that other video. The next track, technically the first track on this Ultra 85 segment of the project, is Heard 'Em Say. And this is definitely one of my favorite tracks from No Pressure, with a beautiful, beautiful sample from the 1980s track Lies by the Manfred Mann's Earth Band, and is a typical Logic motivational song. But it just seems like a victory lap for Logic on this final record, and you can't but smile while listening to it. This is Logic having fun and doing what he wants. The next track, Amen, which already got teased on ESPN earlier on this year, also follows in the same footsteps, and is a beautiful ending to this Logic record. Of course, the last track is Obediently Yours, but it doesn't feature Logic at all, but is rather a Orson Welles monologue on racism and perfectly fits our current social situation and circumstances. Now, kind of recapping on the whole album and giving my final thoughts. Logic seemed to be more himself on this record, and it was in fact a throwback to the Under Pressure era. He mentioned in the livestream listening party that he probably won't make a lot of money off this because they sampled a lot, and it really showed. But this also gave him and his team the ability to be creative to their full extent, just like in the mixtape days. And this combined with the beautiful, crisp, and clean production on this thing makes the instrumental so enjoyable. This is definitely in the race for the album with the best production of the year. Logic's pen game is on point again after some time off, and he brings it back to an older era of his career, which many fans have been missing. It's evident that he didn't lie when he said that he put more effort into the writing of this album than ever before for any project in his career. And except for those 2 songs, this album is top-notch Logic, definitely in the upper tiers if we were doing a tier list here. It serves as a very welcome goodbye to his career, at least for now, as you know that I'm not quite convinced he will actually retire, as he still has a lot of unreleased material that he could drop while being retired. But even without the knowledge that this is his last, this album is definitely a comeback for Logic, and will go down as one of his best. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, I would really appreciate if y'all would subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media in the description. It really helps me out. Until the next one, y'all have an amazing day.